MMA Roadshow, episode number 422. My name is John Morgan, and Cold Coffee is with me here at the Casa de Cold Coffee in an absolutely gorgeous Las Vegas, Nevada. After dealing with the longest winter in Las Vegas history, epic
that
cold.
60-degree weather. Oh my God.
After battling through, just wearing parkas every day outside and shoveling snow.
I feel like I haven't seen your face in so long because you have had one of those ski masks on for ages.
To stay warm, man.
I'm
bundling up. I'm wearing blankets everywhere. No, now we're finally out. I think we're going to hit 100 degrees this weekend, just the way it's supposed to be. That's why we live in the desert.
It's too early for that. It's too early for 100. It is April.
Spring was a fantastic 2 weeks here in Las
If
Vegas.
that.
It's going to summer quick. But it's good to be back together. Good to be back in Las Vegas. Obviously, wrapped up a very, very busy week last week. I know you were pulling double duty last week, doing a little MMA and some boxing as well. How was
the sweet science?
How was the world? Obviously, it ended up being a phenomenal
fight. It was
fight,
a hell of a fight.
And it really was. It looks like it's breaking, not box office records, but it's one of the most profitable they've had in a long time. I said it going into it, and I'll say I'm so glad that both those guys were willing to take it. It really did end up being a good fight, and I appreciate two young guys like that willing to put their reputation on the line and be able to turn out. But you were on site. I know you weren't there during Fight Night because you were at the Apex for Fight Night, but you covered everything else. How was it? It looked like there was some buzz.
In terms of seeing the crowd that was sitting out there for the weigh-ins, it was unbelievable. When I looked around, I couldn't believe how many people. Now, granted, when Conor and Mayweather did their thing, it was a little bit different because they had this little walk around, so the crowd kind of stretched behind us as well. In this particular instance, since the camera deck and stuff was right in the middle and the walk wasn't around the side, all the crowd was off to the sides. But when you looked at the wings of the sides where the crowd was, and then they stretched in front, it was packed.
Right.
It was packed. I did a little video, and I just sort of did a 360 view. I can't even imagine the numbers, but it was in the thousands of people that had came out for it. And,
that's awesome.
And it wasn't even crazy hot, but it was still, the sun was going. It's a lot to ask, the first people came out, and then the main card wasn't even going to come out for another 30 minutes later. So I was like, man, people are just going to be out there. And I saw some dude drop down in front of me. I was like, oh my God, passed out in front. And I was like, no, this is going to be bad.
Oh.
Passed out. They pick him up, and they're like, hell, a medic, we need a medic. And the guy drops again, and I was like, oh, my God, am I going to see somebody fucking die because boxing wants to do this in the middle of the day? Thankfully, a medic finally come up, and he was able to sort of walk assisted out of that throngs, and then hopefully they got him some, hydration and covered stuff. But he looked pale as all get out.
Did
I was
he spill
like,
his
oh
beer,
my God.
or was he able to keep it from?
I didn't see a beer. I didn't see a beer.
Usually,
he'd probably drink his beer before that.
I was gonna say,
before he got
usually
over
dehydration in Las Vegas has a little something to do with some alcohol
There
consumption.
was definitely some weed consumption going on. I was definitely getting the contact buzz up there. But in terms of the crowd being into it, it was awesome. Even at the press conference the day before, or a couple days before, or I guess it was the day before. The crowd reaction was great. People were cheering for both sides. Definitely both camps had a lot of people into it. And so, when you heard people sort of the promoter saying the winner of this is going to be the face of boxing, it was very unique in that sense where you could kind of definitely feel that. You definitely felt that if Garcia would have won, a lot of people would have loved that. And being this young, attractive-looking guy, I could see where all the ladies would just be like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to start paying attention to boxing again.
Right.
And then you got Gervonta, who came from where he came up. A lot of people want to embrace his story and how he's come up. Both sides had just their great fan bases, but both of the fan bases mixed well as well. So it was kind of...
Not like the tension of...
No, there was no tension. It wasn't in the past where, oh, my God, fuck your guy. Oh, yeah, fuck you, It wasn't like the Mexicans versus, some, the white fans or something like that.
The Russians and the Irish.
The Russians and the Irish, where they're the crowd. Everybody just wanted to see a good fight. So it was cool actually being in the environment. Granted, the media still sucks ass, but for the most part, even that was just thrown out there. Even though it wasn't so bad,
it's just chaotic, right?
It's okay. That was the thing. All right, so we get there, and I could see where the stand's going to be, and I was like, me and Oscar ended up sneaking in early to put our sticks up there. But then when we get there a little bit early and people start filing in, the fucking I don't want to say her name, well, not that she's ever listened, but one of the heads of the PR firms was right there on the stage, and so I'm going on there to get to my sticks. She's like, "Who are you?" I'm trying to get my 6 over there. I'm like, of course, I dropped
By the way,
USA
that's
Today.
industry term for a tripod. By the way, if anybody doesn't know what sticks are.
I was like, I'm just trying to get
but
there.
You dropped the USA Today.
I was like, USA Today. She's like,
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Then Oscar tried to get to his, and she's like, "Who you with?" And then she pushed him down to the level below. He eventually, because Casey, I told Casey where I was. Casey, I don't think he was even shooting for Showtime, but with their connections or whatever, he was up on there with me as well.
Yeah.
And Oscar eventually came up and was able to tuck right next to him. We kind of pulled him up there with us and stuff. But I just thought that was interesting. I was like, so we did everything we could to sneak in there, get her, then get our spots.
And they were still
but they were still like, no, get the fuck down. And I'm just like, and we always joke about it. We're so spoiled in the sense that the UFC takes such good care of us during the events and stuff, so that when we go somewhere else and we're just forced to be like, nobody's again, then you're just struggling to try to get access.
So true.
So then when we try to be smart and cool and like, oh, we're going to get there early, we're going to get our sticks in the spot, that wasn't even enough. Then they still finally, but I think that partially too was just a matter of, if she wasn't there on the stage right at the very beginning, it probably wouldn't have been an issue, because then you just show up. Because boxing just always, it's a dog eat dog. You get the spot and there it is.
Bro, they'll move you. They'll move your gear out of the way.
And so I think we just had bad timing of sort of setting up while she was there. But I was glad that name dropping USA Today still worked. But
a fine publication.
But it is. But yeah, no, it was fine. And watching the fight too, it's one thing, I'll always bitch and moan about doing boxing, but it's cool if there's an actual fight that I'm actually interested in seeing. And I was definitely interested in this one, and the fight delivered.
The big boxing fights, and that's one thing that I'll still stand by to this day. Like, overall, boxing, like, they don't do a good job of making the whole card feel big, right? Like, I mean, nobody even shows up for the prelims, whereas at the UFC, now granted, I mean, the UFC, it's not like the house is packed for the prelims, but it's the same product almost all the way through, a little bit bigger at the end, of course, because, now the lights go all the way down, and now Buffer punches a little bit more, but they make the early fights still feel like important fights.
Did you see Oscar's tweet?
No.
That he sent out? Like, it was like early in the night where he was up in the stands and it was like empty. He's like, dude, I think there's more people at the Apex than there are right
That's hilarious. Dude, it's crazy how like late it is. Even like the media doesn't even show up.
They don't show up.
But a big boxing fight, when you get to the big boxing fights, man, they feel big.
And
it's
the walk-ins,
different energy.
The spectacle of like the walk-ins is so cool, But you need that crowd to sort of embrace it. I mean, boxing does a really good job of those last walkouts. Maybe just because it's building up and there, and there's finally that anticipation. Those last final walkouts of like the main event has always been pretty cool in boxing. I always thought they did a really good job with that.
Maybe a few too many people in the ring. Maybe a few too many people in the ring.
That's the theme for the whole damn week. Too many damn people on the press conference. There's way too many people up there on the stage for like the weigh-ins. I don't know if you saw like the weigh-ins. So the weigh-ins, when they do their face-off, they started getting a little chippy.
Yeah.
Bernard Hopkins went up there, and then they started getting into it. But then people started like getting grabby and pushy. Esther, I didn't see it in my video, but I watched Casey's video. Esther actually was like getting bumped off the stage. She's like trying to grab onto something to keep her like from getting like pushed off physically. So she still eventually had to step down and regather herself to get back up. But when you got that many people up there, and then if something like that starts to happen, it's one thing if it's just a fight. There's no control. You can't control 10,000 pounds of people pushing each other up there. So it was just crazy. And just stuff like that. And it's funny because half of those people too are commission folk, promotion folk that just want to be seen. They just want to be on the thing. I'm like, none of them need to be there, and it's just so that whole. I know that harkens back to probably the big days of boxing and all this other shit. But at some point, nobody ever got the decision or the mindset to say, guys, do we really need to all be there?
Right.
It'd be one thing maybe if it was just one promoter doing it, but then when you start having multiple promoters put into it, and then you have the Showtimes in there, and honestly, then you have this guy's in there, it just gets crazy.
If you think about it from a production standpoint, like the whole thing, I mean, obviously the weigh-in serves an official purpose that they do actually have to make weight, but the bottom line is you want that face-off, you want those last images, you want that last little, and honestly, when there's people on there, they end up getting in the way of you having your iconic shot. You don't have, you know what I mean?
Did you see the interviews that happened after it?
No.
So they call, the guy hands off verbally to Ariel. He's like, for interviews of Friday, we're going to hand it off to the intrepid sports Ariel Huani. He's like, take it away, Ariel. And he's like, Ryan, and he starts going in his thing. We're like, wait, where are they at? Where are they at? You can't see him. I knew where Ryan was physically because he walked in. He was on the. If you're looking at the stage,
So
he was
had
on
to,
the right hand side.
Struggle to find him.
You couldn't find him. They were behind so many people,
So ridiculous.
and I think Ryan was still sitting down because there was a part where I could see his knee in between somebody's legs or whatever. So I'm like, oh, they're literally still sitting down. So I was like, Ariel's either sitting down next to him or he's like kneeling down to get this interview. I see like a boom arm with the mic poking over, and I'm sure he had a stick mic as well. But you couldn't even see him because there was so many fucking people. It's like, what's the point of that?
So
crazy. How does that even make it a show unless they had a camera guy that was right there just knowing that it's going to be a shit show? So maybe they had a camera guy on that side. Luckily, when it got to time to actually interview Javante, they pulled him to the front so everybody could see that part of the interview. But there's a whole interview that you don't even see them because there's just too many people on the stage.
So
I'm like,
bizarre.
Who doesn't get the mindset to finally just say, guys, we got to stop this. We got to do something,
That's
you know?
funny. So basically, you got your annual taste of boxing,
Yes,
and that's
yes.
we're done for 2023.
I hope so, but I'm not very confident. But it just depends. I mean, granted, that being said, if it's another cool super fight, I do like it when I've been asked to do like the Canelo fights before.
Right.
That's a cool fight.
Yep.
If Triple G, if something came out, I do that. If the big ones that I'm intrigued about, I don't mind doing those.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
don't send me to random whatever.
Like guys I've never heard of.
Which is half the
Most of
boxing,
them.
anyways.
Yeah.
Like this one had like 3 title fights right under it, and I had no idea who they were. And one. They were good fights. I mean, they were legit boxers. It's funny, and I say legit boxers because now we're seeing more and more boxing with this crossover, like social media guy boxing,
man.
or what. I'm like, these are like legit boxers, But the one, the guy right before, I forget what the fight was, but the dude dropped him, finished him early, and that you don't. Granted, you see that, but I think a lot of times the smaller guys, they're stamina, and they just don't have the power or whatever. But he actually knocked him out or finished him, I believe. And I was like, dude, fuck yeah,
That's awesome.
But I was mainly just trying to get this fight, but it was cool. But yeah, I definitely didn't mind it because I was intrigued by the thing. But that's few and far between.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to kind of match that in terms of.
It was a big
just
one.
star power.
It was a big one.
Really, it was really, like they called it a super fight, and it was because there's two huge names in the sport that have a long future in the sport.
Yep.
Definitely be carrying the face of boxing, if they said. But I liked it because it lived up to the hype.
Agreed. Agreed.
There's so many times we hear so much shit and they talk about it and you're just like, please just live up to a fraction, and it actually lived up to it. So, and the fact that we saw a finish. That was cool. That was very, very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Got a definitive finish. No controversial decision where
Didn't
people are
have to go to the
arguing about
judges
it
and do some
afterwards
weird shit because it's funny. I think we watch enough MMA stuff and we still get that shit wrong. Sometimes when I'm watching boxing, unless it's somebody that's clearly just dominating, it's easy. But then other times I'm like, I don't know how to score. Like I have a terrible time scoring someone unless it's like a clear whatever. But in this one, I was like, dude, I don't know, and then. Didn't even have to worry about it. So I thought that was pretty cool, man.
Well, I got to do things a little bit different. I did not work the event last weekend. I was planning on it, but I after I missed the media day and I missed the weigh-ins because I was in Florida for CFFC, I just thought, you know what? Let's do something a little different. Why don't we just go hang out and watch the fight? So I brought the family to watch it. I'll tell you what, I enjoyed it. I really do enjoy every now and then just getting to sit back and watch fights, not have to write anything about it, not have to worry anything about it. And so I do enjoy getting to do that every now and then and kind of just, I guess, being a fan again, you know what I mean? Just to get to be there and be a fan. But I'll tell you what, man, I was seated next to a couple different families. Man, it is like families of the fighters that were competing. Man, it is such a reminder of what a stressful damn situation this is. I talked about it a little bit on the and a half episode over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. But, man, just that emotion, like parents, wives, girlfriends, like seeing what they go through while somebody's fighting, man. It's a stressful experience.
Yeah.
You just can't. I can't help but feel the stress for them. You know what I mean?
And it's hard to not. You try not to stare and watch it, but it's so intriguing.
It's
like
watching
the emotions, and it's hard to not feel like what they're feeling and to feel for them. I mean, it's because you look on one side and you see the family, and you're like, oh, look at the joy, and then you look on the other side, you're like. You see every emotion, every pain.
It's
They're
the
so
worst.
It's
the worst.
And then I'm like, please don't catch me looking. But I'm like, it's amazing. It's so cool.
And it was funny because I was seated. It was 2 different fights, but I was seated next to one family where their loved one won, and I was sitting next to one where their loved one lost. So definitely got to see like that range of emotions. And It's tough, man. It's just such a reminder what this is. But it was good to be able to hang out. Having a couple cocktails helped with my stress level. I was able to have a couple of drinks. Which, speaking of having a couple of cocktails, Cole Cobb, I think you might have had yourself a night last night, sir.
Yes, I did.
I was tipped off to what might be coming today here when I saw a tweet. And it was only about 10 p.m. when I saw this tweet, but you put out, you said, "What-Ifs? Is it weird to be heartbroken over decisions or lack thereof of your past that enabled you to become who you are today? .. I mean,
I like that's a good read. I feel like you could do better. Can I dig down a little more somber, a little more. Think back to when you're still finding your life and you're like in your 20s, and then you twice over your life and you're looking back and you're thinking,
what ifs? Is it weird to be heartbroken over decisions or the lack thereof of your past that enabled you to become who you are today?"
Yes. I like that. That was very Anthony Bourdain-like. If Anthony was here, I'd say, Anthony, give me a shot.
So I immediately was just tweeted back at you. I'm like, so you're going to be hungover tomorrow? I'm like, obviously, you are having some cocktails right now. If we're getting into some deep reflection, on a Tuesday night where we're going to Twitter to express our feelings to the world. Like, these are some emotions that have got to come out of you.
I know how often I use Twitter.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my god, and I was like, this dude's definitely drinking. And then sure enough, I showed up media day today at the Apex, and you're like, oh yeah. We didn't even really get a chance to talk about it. But you said
we went bar crawl.
You went pretty hard. I think you called it a mini bar crawl. And then continued to name off like 7 locations. I'm like, that's 7 locations. That's a proper bar crawl. Not a mini bar crawl. Yeah. That's a bar crawl.
What is a mini? What would you call it? Like 3 spots?
3 spots would be a mini bar crawl.
Oh, yeah. Then okay, I did a full on.
7 different locations in 4 different parts of town is not a mini bar crawl.
Yeah, and they got some steps in the process too, so that was good.
Steps in.
Yeah, that was nice.
Got your exercise in.
Got your little exercise and stuff. But I realized I should have ate more as the process. We had some tacos from that Soul Belly barbecue that's there in the Arts District, next to Huddle and stuff.
Really good.
Next to the Nevada Brew Works, and then there's the Soul Belly, and then Huddle.
Really
HUDL.
Cool. Arts District, by the way, if you're ever visiting Las Vegas, obviously you're here for the Strip. You want to see the big place, but if you want to get off the Strip a little bit,
it's on Main Street.
It's on Main Street. The Arts District has really turned into a cool spot, man. A lot of little bars and restaurants.
A cool little area. I mean, years back, that would have been. I mean, it's still like on some of the side streets, it's very sort of industrial-ish looking. There's like car maintenance places, lots of antique stores, and some other stuff. Even some of the antique stores have came up after they started revitalizing it. It looks shady as fuck. Back in the day, you would not stop there. It's like you drive through there because you're trying to get to Charleston or you're trying to get to the courthouse or something.
Yep.
But now it's fantastic. So we actually started at Dino's. Then walk from Dino's just straight up. It's just right up around like a few blocks, and then we were there at the Nevada Brew Works.
Dino's, proper dive bar institution. Proper dive bar.
Oh, I mean, it's like you walk in and you either smell smoke or you either smell urine usually. And today, this particular one, or both. This one, it was stronger in the smoke avenue.
Okay.
But it's funny because once you sit down and you have a couple beers,
you don't notice.
I didn't even notice it. I was like, I don't smell anything. It smells like roses in here.
Did you go PBR?
I did.
Gotta go PBR.
I didn't get any of them right.
None? You didn't get any free ones?
None. So yeah, and that's another good thing about Dino's. So if you go to Dino's, they play it's like on the PBR. It's like I don't know what you call it, the card game or something. Underneath the cap of the PBRs, there is a suit and a number, and if you guess the suit right, with being spades, diamonds, clubs, hearts, you get the beer for free.
That's right.
Back in the day, I was told that if you guess the card and the actual face, you would get a bucket of beers.
Wow.
So if you're balling and said 10 of diamonds and you got it, they bring you a bucket of beers or something.
But so you get a chance to drink for free by playing this game.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, it's like $2.75
it's like
a beer
cheap.
or something like
it's
that, which
cheap.
is the cheapest.
But yeah, Dino's is quite the catch.
So started there and then just.
Then we went over. Then we're like, let's go check out the Arts District stuff. And what's funny because I was like, there's breweries over there. We'll walk through the breweries, and I was like, there's antique stores. She's like, I'm not really feeling like antique stores. I'm not either. I just felt like I'd be cool and say that there's antique stores in case you wanted to do something different. Then we went grabbed some tacos from Soul Belly Barbecue, which is really good. So they had like this carnitas taco and barbacoa that were like their specials, and oh my god, they were fantastic. And you could take that and deliver it to Huddle, HUDL, which is another brewery here in town. So we had a couple flights of their beers there, and then and the flights, some of them were a little stronger than the other ones. And then was feeling good. And I was like, oh man, should we go get food, or should we take you down to like the Fremont area or something? But I was like, Rebar's right next door. I was like, maybe let's just go over to Rebar and let's get a couple drinks at Rebar.
So at what point did you have time to start reflecting on life decisions?
That was a couple hours, a few hours later. But yeah, at the end, it was just it was a soggy mess. And the reason I say that, so like this was a person I've known for 20 some years. 20 probably, easily 24, 25 years, something like that. This was back when I was doing like computer work. I had long hair. I was playing in a band. I was that cool, like
lifetime
whatever.
ago,
yeah, it was a lifetime ago. This was a person, messed around with. I wouldn't even call that what we did was dating or something, but we lived together for a short bit. But it was like, now when I think about that time, back then, all I could think about, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing in life. Already at that point, I was already supposed to be in the military, never went into the military,
right.
So I was still just trying to figure out whatever. Here I'm thinking like, maybe the band will be good, maybe we'll stay with music, and I'm doing this computer stuff, like, man, this will all work out, whatever. And that was when I was still working for this like .com pre-IPO company. I talk about it every once in a while. This company, we all thought we were going to get rich off our stock options, all this other stuff. Our biggest vendor that we were working with, our biggest client, was Enron.
Oh, wow.
So when Enron went under, it literally took down everything. Wow. So like our business force was forced to go out. So I made it through multiple layoffs, and then finally got ditched in one of the last bit layoffs before the company eventually just went under. That's what prompted me to decide, well, fuck, I've been doing this without having a computer degree. I was like, maybe I'll go back to school and get my actual computer degree. But when I was going back to the computer degree, I was like, dude, all I did was stress out. I was like, what else do I like to do? So I was like, maybe theater.
And then jazz hands were born.
And then it was from going into theater that I started doing the video stuff, which eventually led me. Then I transferred after that to Ohio State, and then got my theater degree. But that's where I started working with the athletic department and blah, 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 blah. Here I am now. So I'm so grateful that whatever was decided, that's what got me here. So I'll never change that. But there are certain people in your life that you see that you're like, man, if you would have thought back and you think like, man, if I would have made a different decision, say if I decided to say, okay, fuck it, I like you, let's just make something happen.
Right.
I'm going to stick with you. My life path would have been completely different, than it is. But so that's what it was last night, was just having those moments of just thinking about like how different your life would be, because this person, it was like fitting like a glove.
Yeah.
Like it was like we hadn't seen each other in probably maybe 8 years or something like that, but literally felt like that we could have seen each other like yesterday or something. So you start thinking about that and you're like, man, I bet we could have been something good if we did something. But I was like, I can't even think about it. She got married now and has kids, all this other shit. But you just think about those different things. Our life's path, I knew at that time. Well, actually, the only thing I knew at that time was like I knew I was destined for something, and I wanted to keep striving for something, whatever that even was at the time. So I'm grateful that that's what eventually led me here. But now when you start getting something, I know where my career is, and then you start thinking about other things. You're like, man, and you start. I think just as you get older, you reflect upon the decisions you make in your life, and that's what got me. And then I was just fucking shit wasted. I'd been doing a bunch of beers and did shots and stupid shit. We ended the night at Hogs and Heifers, for Christ's sake. I was so bummed that they never got on the bar and actually danced and stuff. I was like, dude, they might ask you to get on the bar. But it was just one of those like weird reflection things, because it was hard to not think about how things would have been different if different choices. And I don't say that for like all the people that I dated or messed around, but just certain ones are those ones that you're just like, wow, this was one that I almost wouldn't have been upset if I did make that push, but I know that my life would be so different.
Who knows?
I'd probably still be in Ohio doing something random or something.
It's pretty wild. I mean, I actually, me leaving the restaurant business to pursue mixed martial arts journalism full time was
crazy.
After divorce.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it was like
you're making mad loot.
I was good money, man, and I made a decision to do that. But it was, you think about if I hadn't had that relationship breakup, would I have gone like, I'm going to pursue this thing that I always wanted to do and never did, because I was making good money and I had his family support, So.
You could still be in a restaurant business.
I could still be in the restaurant business.
You probably would have had a heart attack by now.
Oh, easy.
Fucking food industry is so stressful.
So stressful.
It's ridiculous.
I did. You know what? I got this past week when we were in Florida. CFSC was working with a charity down there, Feed Tampa. And so
that was so cool.
I'd never done that before. We went and fed the homeless. We fed like 250 people. But it was fun because I kicked back into restaurant mode, dude. Because I was out there serving.
I saw you carrying your trays. I was like, okay.
Everybody was like, look at this dude. He's kicking ass over there. I'm like, bro, I've done this before, man.
That's cool that let you do it because a lot of times they just try to use fighters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's cool that I don't remember seeing Punk in that video.
He had just gotten in, his plane like literally just landed.
He timed that perfectly. Huh? He's like, I don't give back to the folks.
No, he does. He's good. He does a lot of good in the community. Don't put that out there. He does. He had just landed, but in fact, he was like, man, I wish I would have gotten in earlier.
They would have really flipped out if he was there.
It was cool, man. I really enjoyed doing it, man. I'd never done that before, but I did switch back in the restaurant. But I will say this: I probably shouldn't be. It was funny because I saw your tweet and I was making fun of you, but at the same time, I was also having a few frosty beverages myself. And then if you go look at
it was good that you did. I was like, thank God Morgan fucking brought it lighter than what it was. My head was I was in a weird space.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So it was good.
I'm glad I lightened it up a little bit.
Yeah,
then. That's good.
Good.
But you know what's funny is because I'm not one that necessarily tweets a whole lot either. But I ended up going on Twitter at 1 a.m. defending Patty Pimblett. So I mean,
was it a full moon last night or something?
We both did weird stuff. Yeah, there was a headline from MMA Mania that Patty Pimblett downplays Bellator and PFL's legitimate promotions and says 99 out of 100 fighters dream to be in the UFC, and people were trashing him. And I was like, hey. That's actually true, and I had actually said the same thing earlier in the week. As a matter of fact,
was it a bad article? Because I didn't actually read that. I didn't think their headline was all that bad.
It wasn't, but I just saw the headline, and then people were right behind it. You know, people were just trashing him or whatever. And so I was like, "Hey, trashing Patty is wrong here." Truthfully, almost all fighters dream of being in the UFC as they start their career. It's the premier brand. He's right. That's the vision. That said, alternate promotions are viable, absolutely competitive, worth watching. Elite athletes are everywhere, and it is. Look, every kid is dreaming of being in the UFC. Then if you get to that opportunity, you may realize, hey, I can actually make more money in PFL. I can actually make more money in one championship. I can actually make more money in Bellator.
Yeah, when you're seeing $1 million checks getting cut, you're like, hey.
So
that's nothing.
There's other, but I think he's right. When people start the dream, they're starting the dream with UFC in their head, and so that's what I'll try. But I'll tell you what, man. What I learned in that before I finally had to go to bed. By the way, don't start a Twitter conversation when you're tipsy and need to get to bed because you got a media day the next morning. But man, people have soured on Patty Pimblett, man.
Really?
Oh my gosh, everybody was just
interesting.
Like, yeah, man.
I mean, well, plus too, when I looked at the headline, I was like, I'm not going to read the article. I'm sure, whatever. But I just wondered too if it was like, because one, I didn't think the headline was that bad, but still, that's also one of those cases where I could see sometime where a fighter's like, dude, you kind of combined an overall interview and combined it into this multiple theme where if you look at the whole scale of what we maybe said, it doesn't really come out to that. Like he probably could have said the same fucking thing that you just said.
Right.
But when you put in a headline, everybody immediately says like, oh, that's exactly what he said. And it's like, no, that might have been the gist of some part that came out. But yeah, when I read that headline, I didn't think it was anything crazy bad or whatever, but I thought it was funny that you felt that you had to like.
I felt the need to defend Patty.
Because when I read that, I was like, bro, it's not even that bad.
I don't know. It's just a couple cocktails. I'm sitting on there. I'm like, don't take the guy out of context. Like he's actually right here. Like that is what fighters dream of.
So what did people say to you? After that,
some people were like, "That's a good point." Other people were like, "No, Patty's an idiot. Like he doesn't know what he's talking." Mostly, what people said is
Did
like,
you get any 10 push-ups?
I don't know. I mute those right away if I get those. So I
wonder if
did.
I just hope that's just finally done.
No, it's not. People still say it, and I just mute it right away, so I'll never see your tweet again because it's just ridiculous. But anyway, so fun night for both of us online and in the cocktail department.
And then here we are today having another beer,
frosty beverage, man.
Well, we need to take because today's media day. Just for everybody that didn't sit around for the 6-hour live stream that I did, was 6 hours. And so you would say, oh, in 6 hours, you must have interviewed, 30 people? 40 people? How many people did we get today?
8 people today, Cold
8
Coffee.
fucking people.
8 people. Cold Coffee was bitter about that, bro.
I wasn't the only one bitter. I think everybody else, I think my head just started at the end. I started having a fucking headache. I was like, I just can't deal with it. But when I was even seeing, like, Alex get upset, Kaplan already left, others were dipping out, and I was just like, wow, everybody's getting a little testy. And then I was like, well, now I'm getting testy.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, it was. And listen, it's the last thing to really be complaining about. I mean, we just sit in there and talk to fighters, but it was just a long day.
So brutal.
And you probably weren't exactly in the brightest of spirits.
Yeah, no, I don't even think my head fully got right back into it at all. I need probably more water and like orange juice or something.
But instead, we'll crack open the frosted beverages.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it today.
I love it. You haven't been doing many frosted beverages lately, so.
Because I mean, granted, I'll have a couple of these today, and that's about it. But no, I mean, the goal is to stay.
Didn't put in all that hard work. Just to put it all back on.
If anything else, I'm like, let's just get back at it. But yeah. But every once in a while, I realize, what's the point of living if you don't actually live? Like, I don't want to live to just work out and watch what I'm eating and do whatever. I mean,
you should post that on Twitter, bro. That's deep.
Well, see, I already forgot what I said. I probably looked at that tweet a bazillion times, and then I finally was just like, just hit tweet or it's never going to go out. That's usually how when I finally do something, I look at it over and I'm like, all right, did I fucking misspell anything? I'm
Is that how you talk to yourself in drunk voice, by the way?
Oh, yeah, probably. And then I'm like, I don't understand you. Well, pay attention. I don't understand what's happening.
What is that, Barney from The Simpsons or whatever? Is that it?
Yeah. I did wake up in the middle of the night, like, sort of like flush, like my heart was like crazy beating. I woke up, I was like, dude, am I having like a heart attack? I was like, whoa, I went really hard. I blame the Nerd Bar when they're a little shitty shot or something. They
you went to Fremont and the Nerd Bar, dude. You keep coming up with more spots.
I didn't tell you I went to the Nerd Bar.
Oh my god!
If you give them a 5-star review, they give you a free shot with your drink. So
is that right?
I was like, hold on a second.
How many reviews you need?
I was like, I'll make up a new account right now. Yeah, so it's funny, yeah. So yeah, Fremont, it was just we hit the.
Why did you get reviewed by Cold Coffee 1, Cold Coffee 2, Cold Coffee 3, Cold Coffee 4, Cold Coffee 5?
This one would have been my UFC Ken account last night, which I didn't realize I had like I've given like 280 reviews like on Yelp in that account. I was like,
but you know
I think it's
because
when we used to travel and stuff like that.
I used to always say I wanted to do it more because like when we were traveling a lot, you're looking for someplace cool to go. Like, these are actually helpful.
Well, what's funny now is like Google, not that they're already not spying on you. If you have like your location, or even when you take photos, like it usually tags the location or whatever. I have things pop up now. It's like, hey, what did you think about blah 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 that you went last week? And I was like, where did I go? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, that one restaurant. I was like, what the fuck, phone? It popped. I'm like, are you sure you don't want to review the blah blah blah? I'm like,
wow.
I guess so. Okay, let me put a review. I was like, how did you know that? But yeah, they're tracking everything. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny that I had added another random review, but it was for a shot. And it's funny, when it came out in the little cup, it was like one of those plastic cups that you probably get like a 12-ounce beer, and it was just at the very bottom, and I was like, bro, come on.
Yeah.
And then we went to Hogs and Heifers, and those fine ladies gave us a proper pour.
I like it.
Yeah. It's funny. She's like, I don't know if I want to do shots. And I was like, come on! And then we ended up doing a shot, and I was like,
Marty.
yeah, she sounded like Marty too. She's like, I don't know, Kitty. I was like, we should probably do another shot.
Oh, too funny.
They had the PBR Pounders there though, so props to that. The only thing about that is a cash only bar. I was like, who has cash? I'm like, I never carry cash. Luckily she had cash. So Hogs and Heifers, being Hogs and Heifers, like they will berate you, they will tease you, they will do whatever, but they love the women.
Yep.
So like the women, they're always like, dude, get on the bar. And if somebody takes their camera, there's even signs that say, put your fucking phones away. Like if the women get on the bars and somebody takes their phone out, unless you're with them, and even then they usually you're like, bro, put your phone away. They don't want when these people that come to Vegas and want to just let loose,
just have fun,
get fucking wasted, and just have fun, dance on the bar, take your bra off, do whatever. And the last thing you want is somebody to get in trouble or somebody to be, shamed because somebody's out there doing it. They're just like, dude, just enjoy it.
Just enjoy
smile
the moment.
Don't put your fucking phone away.
Don't post pictures of your friends on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, come on, that's man code right there.
So when we get there, and I had no cash, so the first round, she's like, oh, I got this. And the bartender looked at me, she's like, what? What's this? I was like, sugar mama. And she's like, okay. I was like, dude, I got off easy right there. I was like, I thought she was going to bust my balls,
That's great.
But again, because I never have cash, and I'm just like, it's crazy. And I guess they're always going to be cash only. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but it's worth it. If you guys are going down and you ever go to Fremont, it's right next to Pizza Rock, which is, you've ranted and raved about Pizza Rock before. Pizza Rock is just delicious pizza. But it's right about where, if you're like right next to the D, I think it's the D casino or one of the ones. But if you look to the right, it's just sort of, it's not underneath the big Fremont hood. It's off to the side. But Hogs and Heifers, it's just kind of, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like, think about Coyote Ugly.
Coyote Ugly. That's
the movie Coyote Ugly. It's kind of like Coyote Ugly, but Vegas version. Mm-hmm. But it's so good. But yeah, that's where we ended last night. And I was like, I haven't been there forever, and I was like, oh my god,
just a mini bar crawl.
Just a little mini bar crawl. What's funny? Even the guy at the door, he was like, whoa, a local. I was like, well, she's a tourist. But he was like, I was like, are you shaming? Are you kind of moderately like shaming me? Like, bro, locals don't go here. Or maybe he was giving me props. I don't know. Who knows? At that point, I couldn't tell.
I'm surprised you can even understand that. You're like,
I think you are right, She's my sugar mama.
Oh, man. Too funny. Well, if you can tell by the conversation we're having so far, UFC Fight Night 223, not exactly the most stacked lineup. Not giving us a lot of storylines to talk about. Obviously, Song Yadong and Ricky Simone in the main event.
The Yadong storyline is the only thing that really rises to the top.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Goodness.
It's just right in your face.
The Yadong's right in your face. So terrible. It is a key bantamweight matchup. Obviously, it wasn't originally expected to be a main event. It's one of those, this division's so deep that neither one of these guys is really going to take a step forward. It's like, this is the number one contender. Song said, hey, I think I should get a top 5 fight next if I win this fight. And there's an argument to be made for that. He did just come off the setback, of course. He did kind of joke. He joked in English today, but it was funny. You always, hey, what kind of lessons did you take out of it? He's like, don't get cut early in the fight.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. You got, not only are you speaking English, but you kind of got some jokes too.
Dude, I was so proud of him, man. Like, and I think we had heard that in the past that he had been when he'd been training and stuff, like that he was talking in English and he could understand a lot better. I thought he was really smart about letting the questions come just to make sure that he had a good grasp on it.
In fact, we've recommended that before, and I think that is smart. Even if you're going to try to speak in a second language, double check that you got the question just right. Let your interpreter go ahead and say the question so you know 100% you got it
that
right.
You're answering the right question.
Yep.
But I thought it was great. But I was just literally, I was taken aback by that. I was like, holy shit. I was like, we're doing this in English? So that was good. Good for him. Yadong rose to the occasion.
Just have to have it there. We did get a good kick out of seeing Ricky Simone's pinned tweet, which I believe is something to the effect of Yadong isn't as big as I thought or something like that.
His face at the end was so funny because, like, I was so surprised nobody went there. I was like, oh, wow, we got out. And then I saw you reach for your microphone.
and then I was exactly
like, oh, it's going. And then when you did it, and his face lit up, like, you could tell he knew what he knew the game, and he played along with it. And he actually was like, "Oh, I know what you want to hear. Is that what you want to hear?" But dude, he was in good spirit. Ricky Simone was in good spirits.
I do feel awfully terrible about making fun of anybody's name or making jokes surrounding about anybody's name, but I'm also incredibly immature, and I just have to.
Yeah. Well, now that his English is getting better and better, he's in on the joke. Yeah. He already knows what's up.
He knows
what's up.
Key matchup there. I mean, it's like I said, it wasn't the expected main event. The rest of the card, we talked to Kyle Bohio, Michal Oleksiejczuk. That could be a fun fight. Michal, obviously, brings a ton of power to the game, especially since he's moved down to 85, where he says, I think I'm ready to contend. He kind of said, look, my time at 205 gave me a lot of experience facing bigger, stronger, more powerful guys, and I think I'm ready now. But Kyle Bohio, a lot better grappling than he has and a lot better wrestling, so I think this is going to be kind of a clash of styles to see who can do what, basically. A little bit of a storyline with Cody Brundage and Rodolfo Vieira. Of course, Cody Brundage was scheduled to fight Rodolfo before. Rodolfo withdrew from the fight for kind of undisclosed reasons. To be honest with you, I think at the time I thought that it was like some weight management issues. Obviously, Rodolfo's had some things happen over the years, but he said no, he suffered a rib injury in the absolute last seconds of his training camp and had to pull out, and he's back. And they put the matchup back together, and Cody kind of said, well, I kind of hesitated. I didn't know. I mean, this guy is, he withdrew from our fight. He's withdrawn from other fights as well. And I wasn't sure if I should take it, but ultimately, I didn't want to turn the UFC down, and so I took it. Rodolfo, for his part, did say, look, I'm 100%. I'm here. I'm good to go. He looked to be in good spirits, so hopefully no issue there. So a little bit of a storyline there. And then, of course, Julian Erosa versus Fernando Padilla were the other two that we talked to today. Julian Erosa, the veteran, Fernando Padilla making his UFC debut, signed for the UFC 2 years ago, but was having some visa issues, and he had to delay his debut for 2 years, and now he gets himself on the main card. He got to do some media right away. If it was the first time I had met Fernando Padilla, first of all, this is about the friendliest dude I've ever met. He walked around and shook everybody's hand and thing, cool. And he was so happy to be there. You could tell he's one of those guys that's really a fan of the sport and knows everything about it. So he came and shook all of our hands and talked about his storyline, and he comes from Mexico, and so there were some issues, like I said, with his visa. But it was kind of interesting to hear him talk about, he just stayed the course, and I thought he really had the right attitude. Now, financially, I don't know how tough this was for him, because I asked him, did you think maybe during this 2 years, like maybe I go fight somewhere else? Like maybe the UFC will let me pick up a paycheck if I go somewhere else, you know? But obviously that would be very risky because if you got that paycheck, but maybe you lost, you know, then I'm sure you give away that UFC deal. At that point, you're tainted goods to them, right? So they're not going to keep you just because they signed you if you go out and, you know, lose 2 fights in the regional scene or something. And he said, no. You know, I knew what I was going to do. I knew this is where I was supposed to be, and so I just stayed the course. I used the time to get better. You know, sometimes you hear when guys are having problems, it's hard for them to stay focused. It's hard for them to stay in the gym. And he said, no, man, I just absolutely used that time to get better and to improve myself and make myself even better. And on paper, it could be a really fun fight. They're both 6'1" featherweights that both kind of like to scrap a little bit. Julian Rosa always talks about how he's trying to better his game and trying to be more patient and let the fight kind of unfold in front of him. Then he basically says, and then I get hit and I just start brawling. And he's like, you know, I just can't help it.
Yeah,
so,
we've heard that one before.
Well, yeah. So I guess, you know, nothing incredibly intriguing from the 8 folks we talked to today. Those were kind of storylines that were out there. I guess, did you take away anything from any of the 8 that stuck with you, whether it be a quote or an attitude or anything that just like, that one stood out to me?
No, I mean, I think what I did think about was that everybody looked on point. Like, everybody looked in shape. Everybody looked in good spirits. You know, I mean, maybe it's just because of the weight classes. There was no real sort of struggling weight classes for any of the guys that were here. But, no, I thought everybody looked pretty good. I mean, we probably could have had less people there today. But, honestly, yeah, I'm intrigued by the main event. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I guess the co-main's actually pretty good too. But I mean, when I look down the rest of the card, I mean, this is definitely one of those cards where it's like, you know, there's definitely some good fights or whatever. But
a lot of late replacements.
Yeah,
you know, we had a replacement in the middle of the day,
which is crazy because I mean, I love seeing Kelleher fight. You know, and I'm not sure what the undisclosed injury. I started seeing some other little sort of tweet things I didn't really read. I know he was supposed to have some other info came out. I'm not sure if that came out, but the gist that I was getting either from our Slack channel or whatever saying like might be to the effect of somebody saying there might be an injury, like a career-ending sort of like.
Well, so here's what he tweeted, and because I saw the tweet too, and I like Brian Kelleher a lot. You know, him and I have that kind of shared history where, you know, he had the flight to Brazil, and he was kind of afraid of flying, but we happened to be on the same plane, and so we talked, and like at the time I was balling status, and I was trying to get the flight attendant to give him a better seat and all this stuff. But so we had that kind of shared history. So I've always been a fan of his because of that kind of relationship or whatever. But so it worried me too when I saw the tweet, and he said, before you say some shit, I will release a statement sometime in the near future. Out of my control. The UFC advised this and will not allow me to fight. More details to come. Yeah. Very unfortunate news. So, I mean, obviously it's tough to read into that. There's not a lot of details there. But it does sound like a medical issue. I mean, now you start
when the UFC is starting to stop it, you know.
Is there brain scans? Is there heart rhythms?
Did something come out?
Did something come up? So, man, hopefully I'm reading too much into this. But it was unfortunate to hear that. I guess the bright side of that for Marcus McGee is that means he gets to step in on short notice and fight Journey Newson, and that'll be a 140-pound catchweight. But, yeah, I will say I think and it always helps when you do some interviews and you talk to some guys. I mean, Josh Quinlan, obviously he got a new opponent as well in Trey Waters, but he's an undefeated guy that can be very exciting.
Looking forward to see how he looks.
I do too. The one I think that stands out that we were all kind of talking about was Cody Durden and Charles Johnson. Those two guys have been chirping back and forth a little bit at each other. Charles Johnson actually came into the room and was like, y'all should have been talking to me. We're the people's main event. And those two guys have been chirping at each other a little bit. They're both promising some violence and promising to teach each other some lessons. So yeah, that one's the one that stands out to me.
And hopefully you didn't jinx Haley Cohen.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
Is it Cohen or Cowan?
Cowan, I believe.
Cowan.
Hopefully I got that right. I think it's Haley Cowan. All hail Haley Cowan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I said it. I said it in the media room because she walked by. We saw her walk by, and I said it there. And you kind of joked that I was jinxing her, so I wasn't going to repeat it. But since you already threw it out there, I was like, yeah, is she actually going to get to fight him? And she's had this scrapped UFC debut twice now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so I was like, no, we can't put that in the universe. But since it was already out in the universe, you can't take it back, you know. But yeah, I hope to see that one because I mean that is very, very anticipated fight of the night. A good start of the card.
Yes, it is.
It starts at a good high point.
So ESPN 2 and ESPN Plus for the prelims and ESPN Plus only for the main card. I believe it's a 4:30 Eastern start and then 7 for the main card.
I didn't realize Jake was back at the heavyweight. I thought he was fighting lightweight this year.
Jake Collier? Yeah. He's all the prototype, baby. He goes everywhere. I love
He's like, I'm going to try lightweight.
I love it, man.
Yeah, he's fun, and he's fun to watch. I like watching him fight.
Yep.
I think he's got
Could be a fun fight.
That's a tough fight.
You know how it's with the heavyweights, you're either going to get something real fun or something not so fun.
Or something not so fun.
Yeah. So we'll see how this one all plays out. Just to be honest, it's not the biggest fight card. We'll be there covering it. So we'll have all the reactions and stuff if you're watching. If I'm going to be honest, man, the big fight card this week to me is BKFC 41, man, the bare knuckle card.
Well, I didn't look deep into the card. I was stuck the main event is just like balls crazy. That's just nuts.
It really is, man. Obviously, this is Mike Perry versus Luke Rockhold. The co-main event is Chad Mendes versus Eddie Alvarez. So you look at those two matchups right there on paper. It's all guys that we're all very familiar with, all very accomplished mixed martial arts fighters. So excited for that. Now, if you keep going deeper, Christine Fajeda versus Beck Rawlings. I know a personal favorite of yours. She's always a trip. Ben Rothwell is on there against Josh Copeland.
Oh boy!
Chris Camozzi is in there against Dan Spahn. So there's some MMAs. Now I will point out that this one is a pay-per-view. This one is not included in the subscription. I believe if you have a subscription, there's a discount code that may get you the pay-per-view a little bit cheaper. I don't quote me on that, but I believe I heard that was the case. I think it was actually Ben Rothwell that told me that. But it is a pay-per-view. But, you look at those names that we just laid out, and I think that's one that you kind of understand why it's going to be a pay-per-view card.
Yeah, that's some big fights.
It really is. And the thing is, if you're going to pay these people, man, you got to get that money from somewhere, and I think they're going to try to recover a little bit.
What is the pay-per-view price?
I believe it's $49.99. So
it's steep.
It is steep, but look at what you're getting on there.
True, but man, I think when you're just used to paying $5 a month or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you're going to drop
it's
almost
hard.
a year's cost in one event.
It is hard.
There's a big one, which makes you think that these guys are at least getting some good money or something. But yeah, top to bottom, it's a really, really good card. But yeah, that's expensive.
I think it's the main card starts at basically the same time the main card does for the UFC. Although I think the UFC should be wrapped up by the time the featured events are out there. So I'll put that on your radar. If you're not a BKFC fan, this might be the week that you think about watching it. I think it's the bigger card with the bigger names, and it is.
I agree. It's hard to deny that.
It's compelling. Sure. Mike Perry. I talked to Mike Perry earlier in the week. Man, he's obviously confident. Mike Perry is just thriving over in BKFC. Number one, he just has to throw hands. He doesn't have to worry about everything else. And man, you get to really see his personality, right? They totally embrace. He talked about it, man. I like putting on the fancy shorts and the robe and the whatever. Just putting the whole in there. And he's going to be facing a size discrepancy in Luke Rockhold, who's the naturally larger guy. But when you think of Luke Rockhold, I personally, when I think of Luke Rockhold's best weapons, first of all, I think about his grappling. I think he has phenomenal grappling. And secondly, even in the striking department, I think about those powerful kicks that he has more than I think about the hands that he throws. So even though Luke's the naturally bigger guy, he also doesn't have any experience in bare knuckle, which everybody we talk to in bare knuckle says it takes a little bit of an adjustment period to try to figure out how you throw and how you punch and the rhythm of all that. And I think I'm leaning towards Mike Perry here, even though he's the smaller guy.
I think the experience. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think he's got great power. And Luke it's always been. It's one thing if he's has that range, but it's always been his legs as well. That's half the battle.
Right.
So I'm with you. I think I'd lean the same way.
Chad Mendes and Eddie Alvarez. I think Chad Mendes is teasing maybe this is his last fight. Eddie Alvarez, of course, man, a gamer. He's going to come in there scrap. This one too is. Because, when I think about Eddie, I think about a guy that always gets hit, but always shows what heart and what chin he has, battling back from tough spots. But, man, Chad Mendes especially, moving up in weight. He's got that power, man. And so I think I probably lean Chad Mendes in this one. But I think this could be a phenomenal fight because Eddie Alvarez, the dude scraps. He's a perfect signing.
And he just doesn't give up. When it comes to toughness, I think Alvarez will literally let you beat the shit out of him before he quits. There's no quit in the dude.
Yep.
So, I happen to think that Mendes probably has, I don't know, just maybe a little more endurance and maybe a little bit more power when he needs it. But, the crazy thing about that sport is that dudes, when you throw too hard and depending on how they block it and defend it, if you hurt your hand, it's a whole game changer. So you never know. He could hurt himself, and Alvarez could pull something out. But if I had to take an initial pick by two, I think I'd pick Mendes as well.
I would too. So I'm interested. I'll be watching everything. I will say I did talk to Ben Rothwell as well. Ben Rothwell has an interesting situation going in that I don't know. The best, the absolute best. Ben Rothwell is earlier this week when I talked to him, which I believe was just it was Monday, I think, when I talked to him. Yeah, it was Monday when I talked to him. Did not know what weight the fight was going to be at because heavyweight had just been kind of open weight. He was like 300 pounds for his last fight, and he talked about how much different that made for him because he didn't have to worry about cutting. He didn't have to diet down. He was full of energy. And I guess BKFC is kind of in the process of trying to institute maybe like a 285-pound cap for the heavyweight division, and I guess that was all kind of still being discussed. So I don't know at this point if that's been worked out or not. I know Ben said he was trying not to let distract him. You know what I mean? Try not to let it bother him. He's like, look, the good thing is if I do have to cut to 285, like it's not that hard for me to cut. If I'm walking around at 300 at this weight, I can shed 15 pounds. So he's trying not to let distract him a little bit. He's also facing a late notice opponent in Josh Copeland. Ironically, it was pretty wild. He said his previous opponent just didn't want to fight in Denver. And basically messaging him, and he was like, yeah, people were saying there was an injury, but his opponent messaged him and said, no, I just didn't want to fight in Denver, which I thought was kind of funny. I guess I appreciate the honesty, but I don't know that I would admit that to everybody.
Yeah, right.
But Ben Rothwell said something that I hadn't really thought about BKFC, and it may seem like a silly thing, but when you deal with a late notice opponent change in MMA, it can be quite significant. You know what I mean? It can really affect. And I asked him here, and obviously Ben's been doing the combat sports game for over 20 years. So I just asked him, I'm like, hey, opponent change here, was that an adjustment for you? And he's like, man, the good thing about this sport, he was like, you can do two things. You can throw a left hand and you can throw a right hand.
Yeah.
Certainly, okay, yeah, some people have a little bit more tendencies. They move a different way. But, it's not like MMA where, I'm spending a whole camp training for a striker, and then the late notice guy comes in and it's a wrestler or it's a jiu-jitsu guy. And you're like, damn, dude, that throws off everything. He's like, guess what? We're still going to go in there and box, and this dude's still going to come at me with, two hands.
And it's funny because I pull up Instagram, and Rothwell is at the top of my list. That thing he posted a clip 2 hours ago of him just literally destroying a dude in the BKFC
That's amazing. His debut.
Dude, he is built for fucking
his
BKFC,
knockout
dude.
Was insane. Yeah,
he's just literally
watching it again.
He is just brutal, dude. It's perfect for him. I mean, that is, and I love. And again, these guys that in the last couple times we've maybe seen them in the octagon didn't maybe have the best outcomes, or they had decent outcomes or something like that. They go over there and they thrive, and they're able to make good money and do this stuff. So I'm so happy for him. And he's always been super cool, dude. It's weird because sometimes he looks like he's not into it and he's not having a good day and he kind of just has this frown on his face, but when you get him talking, he's like the nicest dude ever.
The nicest dude. Yeah. He really is, man.
It's pretty awesome.
I told him, it was funny after we got done with the interview, I did tell him, I was like, on record, we don't cheer for anybody, but I can tell you the old school crew all cheers for you, man. Everybody wants to see you do good. And he's like, I appreciate it. We've been around for a long time. So. So it's cool, man. So
that's good shit.
I think that's the one. I'll have it pulled up on my computer.
When you lay it out like that and you look at the names and the faces, it's hard to not say that the BKFC. Just even in terms of maybe not the most technical, but in terms of tearing at your fucking heartstrings of guys you want to win,
guys you want to watch fight,
easily BKFC.
I'm telling you, man. So this, look again, $49.99, not cheap, but
it isn't cheap.
If you can maybe pool it together with a couple people, or if you can, maybe you can find some. I don't know if any place shows it commercially. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if you can find something, I think this is one.
You think that would be? Why not?
Yeah, well, sometimes they just got to have.
I'm looking at you, B-Dubs.
Yeah.
Can't you just dial up B-Dubs and tell them? Or they'd be putting on, is this the same night as the UFC fight?
It is the same night. But I don't think they show ESPN Plus in B-Dubs most of the time. So they definitely do the pay-per-views.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe check it out. See what you can do. All right, listen, we will have full coverage of it. Like I said, patreon.com. If you like what you listen to, make sure you join us over there. For as little as $3 a month, you can help support the show. And, of course, it does give you exclusive access to the and-a-half episodes where we wrap up all the UFC action each and every week, which is pretty much each and every week.
Yep.
And,
want to
join us over there.
Yes, we have to make sure we give a shout-out to Hector Castro, who joined the family last week. we were gone. We were separated.
We were.
So we weren't able to
right.
to make sure that we gave Hector his big shout out. But we didn't forget you, Hector, bro. Welcome. Hector came in at the producer level. He's coming in just as a stud, right?
Coming in balling.
Coming in ball. Even though he's still got an AOL address, so I'm wondering if he's using all of his money instead of getting that real internet to join us. I tease, Hector. I wonder if he still got those discs. They still sending the CDs out. I'm like, hey, you get free 24 hours of internet.
So too funny.
Most of the people that probably
don't even remember that.
They don't even understand what we're talking about. Like, hasn't it always been unlimited? No,
it was not.
No, it was not.
You had
it used to be by the hours, by the fucking hours of internet you have.
Good Lord,
it's changed. Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Time is changing. Unbelievable. All right, so that's what we got having. Well,
and that was when you still had dial-up. Shit took forever to download. And it's like, we only got so much. Don't use it all.
Like the Devil's Air Raid or whatever. The sound of that thing connecting, man. Oh gosh, crazy. All right, listen. Yeah, we'll have full coverage. We'll have a wrap up of the and a half episode next week. I'm actually going to go to Denver, so I will be in there for the one championship debut. So expect full coverage out there. We'll do a show from out there. See if I don't know who's making the trip out there, so we'll see if there's some other media that can maybe corral into doing a preview of one championship. It's their U.S. debut, so a big one for them. And of course, UFC 288 is happening next week as well. Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo. We'll certainly talk about that and everything that is teeing up on that, because that looks like it's going to be I'm excited for that fight. I really am. It's going to be card taking some heat, but Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns stepped in to give it a solid co-main, and I think it's gonna still be fun. Tonight, though, as soon as we leave here, I'm going to a Las Vegas Lights game. So I'm excited. My first one of the season. The local soccer team here is actually playing an MLS squad tonight. Real Salt Lake. It's part of the I believe it's called the Lamar Hunt Cup now. It used to be the U.S. Open Cup. Got the pool. Got the pool. My kid is volunteering.
You're so bougie. You're once bougie, always bougie. You can't go back from the pool.
It's the best VIP thing you can do, right? All right. In fact, I've already reserved a pool for July 4th as well.
Oh, wow.
It's actually
fireworks and everything.
I can't remember if it's on July 4th or if it's earlier in the week, but it's the Tuesday of International Fight Week. And I think we're trying to get our man Simon Head over here, and I told him he's got to come and come hang outside. But if you go to a Lights game, if you're going to go and you want to do it the right way, first of all, it's only like $10 for tickets, so it's cheap to get in. But if you want to step your game up a little bit.
It is Tuesday, July 4th.
Tuesday, July 4th. So Independence Day, or I'm sure Simon Head will call it like Trader's Day or Treason Day or something like that. But you pay $50 and you get up to 4 people that can sit there, and they put a little kiddie pool full of water like right on the sidelines. I'm talking about like 3 yards.
Like you can get hit by a ball.
You can easily the ball rolls over there all the time. You gotta pick it up and throw it to the player to throw it back in or whatever.
That's awesome.
So we always get that, and then you just bring like a lawn chair and you kick your feet off and grab your cold beer, and you're sitting right there next to the game. It's fun. So my kid's actually gonna volunteer as a ball boy tonight. So he's gonna be out there working on the field.
So do they bring? Do servers go by the pool things?
They don't.
You have to
go get it. So that's the one. I know. Jeez. It's not really that VIP.
You're going to make me walk to the beer center?
I need to talk to him. I'm like, can you just bring the beer to me?
Like, I promise I will tip enough to send through college.
I will.
Make
just
me
keep
not
coming
have
to
get
me.
up.
So I'm going to go do that tonight. You, I guess, mini bar crawl lined up again?
No. I'm going to be good. I might even go to bed early tonight just to make up for it.
I love it. All right, listen, I got to run. Schedule's tight because we got stuck there so long in the Apex. I got to go pick up my family, head down to Cashman Field, go Las Vegas Lights. Tough one tonight. First time ever in club history facing an MLS squad.
That's awesome. What's the squad?
Real Salt Lake.
Ooh,
Real Salt Lake.
They're
so
legit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if you're a soccer fan like me, it's a tall order tonight, but hey.
Their stadium's awesome.
Big things happen.
I think I guess it's a few years old now. I mean, theirs was another one that was built specifically for soccer specific.
Yeah, when you go up there, you see it when you drive up there. When you go up there for.
I haven't been able to go into the new crew one that was a soccer specific one that they built for that one. I hear that one's really nice too, but it's so fantastic that how it's grown in the States, and I'm sure Simon Head and all the other guys are going to be like, whatever. You guys think you have something here, but still, whatever. It's grown a lot. But, that Lights it's pretty fun.
Awesome.
It's been a while since I've been there.
Well, everybody enjoy what you're doing this week. If you want to tune in for the UFC, we'll be there. If you want to watch BKFC, I'd probably recommend doing that this particular weekend. And either way, we'll be around. And most importantly, thanks for listening.